Hello, it's Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome to my latest video. Today I'm hoping to start making a journal out of some packaging. So the things that I'm going to be using are this cardboard box. It's an Amazon one, and as soon as I saw it I thought that this fold here would hopefully make a really nice spine. I love using boxes for this because you've already got kind of your basic shape there, so I'm going to be cutting that down and starting the process of decorating my cover. And then for the pages, I've got all of this brown paper packaging, and it's lovely and matte on one side and quite glossy on the other, so I think it's going to be challenging to work with, but I really want to stretch myself this year. I want to try different things, and some of them will work and some won't, and I just kind of want to be okay with that. And I figure when I'm working in this journal, on the glossy sides, I'll probably do things more like collage or use gesso to get them nice and matte so I can add other surfaces on top. So the first thing I'm going to start off doing is preparing the cover. And I'm not sure how far I'm going to get today. I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on the time, and perhaps if we don't get very far, then I might come back and film another couple in this series. So I'm going to start off just by removing kind of any loose bits. And then I'm going to start deciding what size I want my journal to be. For a start, I know that I can cut off this end bit here. I was looking at all the packaging that you kind of inevitably get in the run-up to Christmas, and whilst a lot of it has gone in the recycling, I thought it'd be really nice to see what I could use to actually turn into something. Okay, so I've now got something which at least is starting to look a bit like a cover, but certainly much larger than I want. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is start thinking about the height that I want of my journal. So again, I don't want to do anything too precise here. I just want to have a think about the size. I could go for an A5-ish size journal, but I quite fancy something big actually. So I think I might go for 10 inches. And take that across there too. And I probably will use this journal for perhaps some sketchbook stuff, art journaling, kind of junk journaling, anything like that really. I'm going to check my measurements because that's looking slightly wonky, but that could just be the angle I'm at. But again, as I say, I really don't want to worry about things being too precise here. Okay, that's looking okay. And I'm going to do the same across the spine as well. For the cutting, you could definitely just use some scissors, but I'm going to try and use my craft knife in the hope that I get slightly tidier edges, though I often think actually I do better with scissors. I'm going to start just very carefully working my way through this cardboard. I've got a cutting mat obviously underneath to protect my desk, and I think it might take a few runs because this cardboard's reasonably thick. Okay, that's the top bit now cut off, so I now just need to decide on the width of my journal. I'll have a look, see what feels about right. I think I might go for 6 inches, but obviously depending on whatever packaging you've got, you just pick the size that works best for you. I really love making things that are something you would usually throw away. I think there's something incredibly satisfying about that. And also I think it kind of gives you more freedom to play in it, because it's not like a really expensive journal that you spent lots of money on. This is something that would have kind of been put in the recycling anyway. So I think hopefully it will just give me lots of freedom to play. So that's my 6 inches across there, and I'm now going to do the same on the back as well. Okay, I'm hoping I've now got something that looks kind of roughly even. Yep, I'm really happy with that. So I've now got the cover for my journal. For the start of kind of turning this into something hopefully slightly prettier, the first thing I'm going to do is put a coat of gesso on it. So I'm going to be using some Daler Rowney acrylic gesso, but you could use white acrylic paint, or you could just leave it as cardboard and add some stamping on top, or glue some patterned paper down. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to put on top of mine yet, but I thought at least if I give it a coat of gesso, it's going to be slightly more forgiving for me if I want to put some other coloured paints or thin collage on top, or even thin patterned paper. It's going to just mask some of that, of the kind of brown cardboard coming through. So it's probably going to take me a couple of layers. I'm going to get this first one on and drying, and then start working on creating some pages for the inside. And it doesn't matter to me if I add more layers to this once the journal's already made. The only thing I'm going to bear in mind is that the spine, both on the inside and the outside, are going to be more difficult because I will be putting the binding for the pages through there. So I kind of want to make sure that they're looking at least okay, because I know that there's not that much I'm going to be able to do to them afterwards. So I'm just going to carry on and add this gesso all over the back of the cover. Okay, so I've got the first coat on. I think I'm going to give that actually a quick dry with my heat tool and see if I can get another layer on that before I start the pages. I've now got the second coat on the cover, so I'm going to move this all to one side to dry and start making the pages. The journal cover itself was 10 inches by 6 inches, so I want to make sure that when my paper is folded, it's always at least ½ an inch smaller than that in both directions. So I think what I'm going to start doing for now is just folding each of the bits of paper in half. And this is going to have a really kind of rustic look to it just by the nature of the paper already. So I know that that's fine, that's much less than 10 inches high. So for 6 inches wide, so I want this to be kind of 5½ inches maximum so that it fits nicely inside the cover. And I'm going to see how easily this kind of tears, because I quite like it to maintain a kind of roughish look. Okay, that was fine. And I'm going to have all sorts of different size papers in here just because of the nature of the packaging I'm working with, but I always really like that. So have a look at this one. It might be with some of them I can get, if I tear this in half, I can get a couple of pages out of it. See, I think I'm just going to roughly tear that along the middle. And then again, use this until I've got it to a size that I'm kind of happy with. I'm really looking forward to having this kind of playful journal, one that I don't need to worry about. Okay, I think I'm just gonna this probably does need to be tidied up just a little bit along the edges there. Again, just always checking that it's going to be an okay size to fit inside the cover. So I'm just going to work my way through now my pile of paper packaging and kind of just start creating all of my pages. So I've now got all of my pages created, and as you can see there are a range of different sizes. I wanted to get as much out of that paper packaging as I could. So I've got some that are small, some that are large, and I'm going to just start now putting them all inside each other. And where I've got some smaller ones, I'm going to try and alternate those a little bit with putting bigger ones in between. And I think that'll just give a nice bit of interest when I'm flicking through the journal. So there's all sorts of crumpled sheets here, bits with folds in, imperfect tears, and I say I'm already so excited to start working inside this. I think it'll be really interesting to see which mediums work well on this. I'm thinking things in coloured pencil might look quite nice. Lots of gesso, perhaps some acrylic paint, jelly plate printing, lots of collage. So yes, it should be great fun. So I've now got all of those together folded inside, and I'm going to put those to one side for a moment and put the gesso on the back of my cover. As I mentioned, I'm not worried about it being perfect because I'm going to add decoration on top of this, but I think that's looking good enough for now. It is still slightly wet around the edges, but that should be fine, because I'm going to be adding things on top. The only thing I just want to make sure is that that spine's kind of okay. I probably won't add any decoration on the spine because that's going to have the binding in it. But I do want to make sure that it's quite nice and white, so that's kind of my priority for getting the extra coats on. So I'm going to do a first coat all over and then dry that off with my heat tool and get a second coat on there and dry it so that we can start getting these pages inside the journal. If you do have a go at this with some packaging you've got lying around, I would absolutely love to see it. I'm on Instagram at Journal with Purpose, so please do tag me in. I think this could be a lot of fun because I'm not doing my journal zine project this year. I thought it would be quite fun to perhaps do a different creative project each month. I've got a couple of different journals that I'd like to make. I also want to free up some time this year for doing more Skillshare filming. I've got a couple of kind of really in-depth classes in mind, so I know that's going to take a lot of time to get filmed, but I really want to give a bit more priority to that this year. Okay, so we're nearly there with the first coat. I'd love to know if you've got any other kind of creative projects on the go as well this year. I've got quite a few things I'm working on. I filmed a little video, kind of catch-up video for Patreon earlier in the week, just showing some of the different projects I'm working on. I really want to stretch my skills this year. That's one of my kind of biggest goals, along with refining everything that I do. I just really want to just try things in different styles that perhaps I'd discounted before, or particularly things I think that I can't do. I really want to have a go at those and just feel that hopefully by the end of the year that I've perhaps discovered something new that I really like doing, or I've discovered that there's something I thought I couldn't do that I could, and either way just have lots of fun along the way rather than worrying about the outcome. Okay, I'm going to give that a quick dry and then add the second coat. So my cover is now, I think, pretty much dry. Ideally, I would probably leave this overnight. One of the things I will have to go back and do is either paint along the edges, or I may well actually wrap the edges in some washi tape. So it's kind of quite rough and ready at the moment, which I would expect because it's going to have extra decoration on top. I think the only thing I'm going to do is just add something extra along that outside spine. The inside is going to be pretty much covered anyway by the journal pages, but I do want the outside to perhaps look a little bit nicer than just the white gesso. So I've got this really wide, it's classic-y paper tape. Mine came from London Gifties. I'm going to just fold that over. I think it may struggle to stick to the gesso slightly because the cardboard's still quite damp, but I think that will be enough for me to be able to actually put my binding through there, and then once everything is dry, be able to glue the edges of all of this down. I'm now going to go back to working on the book pages. Now what you could do is, if you've got too much packaging, you could split this into different signatures, but I think this will be absolutely fine just as one. Now I bought a little book binding kit from Amazon a few months ago now, and I found it really handy. I will leave it linked down below in case you fancy taking a look, but otherwise I'm sure you'll be able to carry on making this with whatever you've got. So I'm just trying to get this as flat as possible at the moment. So I'm using a bone folding tool, but if you've got the edge of a ruler or just using your hand, that will be fine. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure that all of your pages are kind of tucked firmly inside each other. So I'm now going to open it and find my centre pages, which are there. Just check, kind of tap them gently, check they're all in together. And I'm now going to clip these pages together to try and make sure they don't move around too much. I'm going to put, I think, one clip up the top there, and then put one at the bottom as well. I'm going to be really interested to see kind of how my journal comes together over the next few months. I'm going to take my time with decorating it and adding journaling inside the pages, but I'll make sure I kind of give you some updates as I go. The next thing we're going to do once we've got these all clipped together is start piercing some holes. And I've got this tool here, but if you've got a sharp needle or something, that should be absolutely fine. So I'm going to try and find roughly my centre point. So it's going to be about 4.5 inches, so there-ish. And I'm now just going to start gently pushing that through my folded paper. So I'm going to just take my time because I don't want to tear the paper, and then hoping that this comes out roughly on the fold on the other side. I'm going to try and make the hole quite big. You can see I've come through, and just keep gently easing it. Okay, so that is my first hole now through, and I'm going to use this as a template when we go back to the working on the spine in the cover. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is make a mark, probably 2 inches for me either side of that centre point, but again, just work with what you've got. What you really want to try and make sure is that if you've got some smaller pieces, that where possible you're getting as much of those kind of trapped inside the binding as you can, because usually I'd take this a bit further out, but I know I've got some smaller sheets in here, so I just want to make sure that they're nicely in there. So I'm just going to do the same again and slowly push this through both of those marks so that I've got 3 holes in my folded paper. Okay, so that's the pages now pierced. We can see the 3 holes there, and they're coming through to the outside. And I'm now going to grab the cover. So we're going to be working on the inside of the cover. On the outside, I know I'm going to have to do something with this because of the way the fold is there. That's standing up, but that's not going to cause me any problems in the binding. So I might run some more of that tape along both sides of that, or some other washi tape, but I want to make sure that that cardboard's really, really dry. So that's probably something I'll do tomorrow. So we've got the spine here, and I want to be making sure that I'm binding kind of roughly in the middle of this. So I think I can probably just about do that by eye. So somewhere kind of along this line here is in the centre. That's just so that the pages hopefully sit nicely. And now again, we want to find roughly that centre point. So I'm looking for about the 5-inch mark there. What I do want to make sure is that if I hold this centre point here, Check that I've not gone wrong with the measurements, because this is the time to get it right, and check that all your pages are going to be sat nicely inside the cover. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to now pierce my centre hole here. And we know that these, in my pages, these both were 2 inches apart. So again, I'm going to make the marks for the 2 inches either side of the centre point and then pierce the holes. Great, so the next step is going to be binding this into the cover. And in this kit that I bought, there's some wax thread, but you could use something like string or embroidery thread, or you could use some regular kind of sewing cotton, but perhaps go over it a couple of times. I think I might use the wax thread. It's a bit overkill actually for this, because it's not going to need to be massively strong, but I do like the look of it. I think it will give quite a nice kind of rusticy finish to it, which is pretty much what I'm going for. So I'm just going to snip off quite a nice long length of this. And then we're going to need to thread that onto a needle. So I've got quite a few of these bits and pieces anyway that I've built up over the years, but I have enjoyed just having one nice kit all together for all the little bookbinding. I actually got this, the reason I bought this kit was for the curved needles, and that was when I was binding together my index card journal, and I'd never used something like that before. And the cost of buying those individually wasn't that dissimilar to the cost of the kit. I needed wax thread actually, as well as the curved needles, and I could buy them individually, but say it wasn't much more to get the kit, so I thought I'd just get everything together. So you want to start from the inside and go up through your centre hole, and then line that up with your cover. And now push your needle all the way through, and then pull the thread, but leave a reasonably long tail inside, because we're going to want to tie these together at the end. So I'm probably going to leave it slightly longer than I need, because I find it easier to tie with longer thread. And now we're going to turn the cover over, and you can go through here either the top or the bottom hole. I always find this more difficult going from the outside in, but I'm now going to lift, I've done the cover separately, and I'm going to lift it up, find the hole within my papers, and then push the needle through. And one of the things I did to just make that slightly easier for myself then was actually push it through a few of the different sheets of paper at a time, so that I could check it was all lining up. So I want to pull that, and I just want to then check that it's tight on the outside. So yeah, you've got that nice and tight. And then you're going to bring this and go back through that centre hole again. And this is probably the easiest binding method, is just using these 3 holes, but there's some amazing binding tutorials online if you want to do something a little fancier. So again, I'm just making sure that that thread is really nice and tight up here. And now again, just the same as we did with that hole, I'm going to bring it through the spine and then get it through that hole in the papers underneath. Okay, before we tie it on the inside, you want to make sure again that these are nice and tight, and you should now have your 2 lengths of cord on the inside. So now it's just a case of simply tying these together. I say simply, I think this is the bit I struggle with the most, is always tying these so that I end up with a knot flat on the paper. The first one's always fine, but so I'm trying to hold that down and pull my second knot as tight as I can to try and stop there being too much movement in the pages. So I'm just holding that down, pulling my threads apart. Okay, that's fine. It's a little bit loose, but it's going to be absolutely fine. And then I'm just going to trim those edges off. So now we should be able to remove the clips and hopefully have the start of our packaging journals. So say once that's dry, I'm going to leave that flat overnight and then probably just add some more tape down here and then start decorating the cover over the next few days. Be a nice relaxing thing to do in the evenings. But inside now you should have lovely crinkly packaging pages. So I really hope you enjoyed this. It's something a bit different, but hopefully something fun to have a go at. So if you do have a go, please do tag me in over on Instagram. As always, a massive thank you to everybody who's joined me over on Patreon. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking with you really soon in my next video.